Hi everyone! Welcome to the Reclaimed Ranch, and today we are working on the Maker's Box from Sonnet for the month of December. Let's get started. Let's see what's inside. So we have firm recycled decoupage paper. There's Silhouette, rustic pine cone from Connie at the Painted Photographer. There's Heavenly Sign and Mistletoe Kiss. And DIY paint, we have White Swan and Aviary. And Fusion mineral paint, we have Coal Black and Bayberry. And then the Sweet Pickins milk paint is Lantern. Okay, let's check these out. Oh, cool. Okay, so Sweet Pickins milk paint, Lantern. Looks like it's a really nice black, pitch black color. And this is one of my favorite greens in the Fusion lineup, Bayberry. It's a really pretty green, kind of like an olive green. And then we have Coal Black and the DIY. So this is another pretty green. It's called Aviary. Very, very pretty for like a muted Christmas. And then White Swan. And then, oh, fun. So this month, our little bonus is like a silhouette cutout from C&C DIY Factory. So that's super cool. I'll have to figure out a way to use that. And let's take a look at the papers. So this is obviously the rustic pine cone from Recycled Treasures. And I like the fact that it's kind of like a wintry theme. Oh, how cool is that? That's fun. Polka dots and all the different types of greenery with the pine cones. Yeah, that's gonna be fun to work with. I can see some of like this paper here. It's got some crackling right here. Doing that silhouette and something like that would be cool. And then this is the silhouette. So it's got that same background. So I was right. It does go well with that background. And you get all kinds of different silhouettes. That's fun. That'll be fun. Put them in some vintage frames. How cool would that be? And then this is Heavenly Sign. Beautiful Cardinal. Look at how pretty that is. That's going to be fun to use as well. And the Mistletoe Kiss. Very cool. Love them. Love them, love them. All right. Well, my mind's already turning, so let's get into some crafting. So project number one, I found this wooden spoon rest at the Goodwill bins and thought it was cute. And so I'm going to take Connie's mistletoe paper and just use that water method to make a border around it so I can tear it out. And once I tear it out, I'm trying to figure out like exactly where how far out on the edges I want to go with this. And I ended up keeping it pretty much just to that middle part of it. But I did want to make sure to paint the background white, and I used picket fence infusion for that. It did end up taking a couple of coats. Anytime you use white on a darker surface, it's going to take a couple of coats. So after that was all dried, then I could go ahead and decoupage that little cute mistletoe in there. And then I had a hard time like figuring out how to embellish this. So it took me a little bit to, I had to actually just set it aside for a while after I decoupaged it, and I painted the top with the DIY's aviary because it went really well with that color green in the decoupage paper. And Connie from the Painted Photographer, when she does her design, she always paints them with the DIY paint colors, so it makes it pretty easy to blend in the paints with her designs. So you can see some of those edges are, I ripped it a little bit too small. And what I'm going to do is just take the excess paper and kind of just tear little pieces and decoupage those spots in and blend it in. That's what I love about decoupage, is you can layer it, but you can also blend it in where you've missed some areas, so it makes it pretty simple. So I just tear a little piece off, put some decoupage gel down, and blend it in, and it looks pretty seamless once you're done with it. So now I'm just taking what was left on the brush from painting that top part and just blending in the edges where the paper was white. And I'm going to go ahead and seal everything. You have to seal DIY paint because it's a clay-based paint. And so I'm going to seal it with Big Top. And I'm going to seal the bottom part as well, even though the decoupage sealed it, but I used the green aviary around the edges, so I needed to make sure to seal that part. And after a while of pondering what to do to finish this project, I finally came up with, I had some black leather ribbon here, and so I'm just going to hot glue it around the edge there. And I also have some really pretty velvet red ribbon. It's a muted red, and so it matches that bow in the mistletoe really well. And once I get this wrapped around to the top, I'm going to put a little bow where the two pieces come together and call it good. This next project, I found a bunch of old vintage frames at a yard sale, and they were brass. They were made in Italy. And this was back when I was totally into my farmhouse decor, and I painted everything white and distressed it. And now I'm kind of gearing towards more of the brass looks, the antiques. And so I am taking acetone and a baby wipe and I'm removing some of that white paint. So it's giving it a beautiful distressed look, but it's also bringing out that gold brass tone, which I absolutely love. So this does take a little bit of finger rubbing and a little bit of time, but I do end up getting it just the way I want it. And I do this to both the frames. And then we're going to be using Roycycle's paper, silhouette paper, for these frames. I thought those would be perfect since these are old and vintage anyway. They go perfect together. And so I found some cardboard. And what I'm going to do is just trace out the inside oval part for both frames, and then I'm going to paint that white with my Fusion's Picket Fence, and it does of course take a few coats to get a nice white crisp color underneath. And then I'm going to decoupage. I actually used the middle part of the rustic pine cone decoupage paper from Roycycle, and I'm going to use that as the backdrop because it's the same backdrop on the silhouette as it is that rustic pine cone. So I'm going to take that and then I'm going to decoupage it on and I'll cut it out. And then I'm taking my silhouettes and just cutting out the head portion. I'm going to make sure that there's no frames around it because I did that first and I didn't like the way it looked. So I'm just going to use the portion of the head, and then I'm going to decoupage that on top of the backdrop. And I put those in the frames and I decided it needed a little bit something more. So I ended up finding a stamp set called Ephemeral Type, and I stamped some words on the background, and that seemed to pull it all together. So after I stamped those words on there, you could see it through the silhouette head. And so I'm just taking my Fusion Coal Black and going back over just to darken everything up so that you don't see the words through the head. So it made it look a lot more stunning, I think. And all my Fusion products you can find on my website at thereclaimedranch.com. So if you have any questions, you can always email me through there as well. And I'd love to hear from you and answer any questions that you might have. And then when I'm done painting this, I thought, yeah, you could leave it that way, but I was like, well, let's add one more thing. And so a few months ago in one of the maker's boxes, Sonnet gave us 3 golden keys or brass keys, like old time keys. And so I thought I would put one of those keys on this as well and just give it a touch of vintage vibe. And I think they turned out really cool. This third project I found while I was digging at the Goodwill bins, just this random old handle. I don't have any idea what it used to be, but it had a hole in the bottom. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little picture frame out of it. And in our box, we got this really cool wooden design of a silhouette. And so I'm going to go ahead and paint the background white. I'm just doing a classic white. I could have painted it green or, a different color, but just the basic black and white for me. And so I'm going to paint the head black, and then I'm just going to hot glue that onto the whiteboard, and I'm going to hot glue the little wire piece onto the wooden handle, and there I have a really cool antique looking picture frame holder. And so because I used the white swan from DIY, I do have to seal it. So I'm going to just seal it with the big top. And I used the Fusion with the black, and Fusion has its own sealer, so I didn't have to worry about doing that. But then I put that in there and had a cute little piece for a vignette. So I thought that was kind of cool. And this next project, I had 2 of these buckets actually from the Goodwill bins. I have already upcycled one of them. But this next one, I'm going to use the Lantern Sweet Pickins milk paint that was in our box, and it's always 1-to-1 with this. So 1 part of the powder paint, 1 part water, and you mix it really well. I'm using a little mini whisk that we got in a different maker's box, but I also use these little tongue depressors to get into the very corners of it, because a lot of times that little mixer can't get in there. So mix it really well, let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to give it a good coat of paint. And this is so pigmented that you don't need 2 coats, especially with the black. And I love milk paint for wooden projects because it does seep into the wood and creates a really good bond. Now, if your wood is already painted, then you can get that really cool crackle effect. But when it is either like stained or raw, you get a really nice finish with this. You can get a really smooth finish. So going over the metal, I knew that the Sweet Pickins milk paint probably would crackle and chip off, and that was okay because I planned on painting it a different color anyway. So I did 1 good coat and then let that sit and dry completely. And then I'm going to end up using the Roycycle paper called Rustic Pinecone on this. And then this is the color I chose, the Bayberry, to do the metal parts. And I chose Fusion because it's going to adhere really well, give it a nice base. Now you'll see later on after I do the decoupage paper, I do have to go over and repaint this, but that's okay. It is what it is. I had to paint the decoupage paper white on the back in order to make the colors pop, and it ended up leaving white paint on my green stripes. So that's okay. You live and you learn, and that's, part of crafting. Totally fine. So I ended up doing 2 coats of the Fusion paint on these little metal stripes, and then you can see here how much it chipped off on the back. That's because I used my heat gun. When you use your heat gun or blow dryer or whatever, put any heat to milk paint, it does help make that chipping and crackling effect. And because of the round surface, I had to kind of go at an angle with the paper, and so I ended up cutting, you can see the cut marks, and that just helps alleviate some of those hard to pull areas. And then I didn't have quite enough to go to the end, so of course I'm just kind of piecing in some of the other parts of the paper there. And that's what I love about the decoupage, again, is you can just kind of piece together, you know, put it on top of each other to make it look exactly how you want it. And then since this area is kind of pieced in, I did decide I wanted some little critters on there, and I went into my Holly Glen IOD transfer set from last year's Christmas release, and it had some really cool woodland animals in there. And so I picked out a squirrel and an owl, and I kind of put those into this area, and it just really covered it up and made it look super cute. So you always want to make sure your decoupage paper is completely dry before trying to remove it. I'm just going in with a little razor blade here and taking it off, and you can see, as I had discussed before, that white paint from the decoupage paper got onto my rim there, and that's totally okay. Easy enough fix just to repaint. So again, if you don't wait until it's completely dry, a lot of times it will tear and rip and create a little bit of a ruckus on your decoupage paper. So just be patient and let it dry, and then you can go in and remove it.
Headlights on the highway, if you only knew. Being back here always makes me think of you. When the world is sleeping, do you think of me? With the road it's coming back again, coming back to me. I remember the long drives, the late nights in your car. I remember it all. Windows down, empty streets, you were all I used to know. You and I, forever ago. And you used to drive me home. Now I drive alone. You and I, forever ago. This town's so quiet, this time of year. With the road ahead's coming back again, coming back to me. I remember the long drives, the late nights in your car. I remember it all. Windows down, empty streets, you were all I used to know. You and I, forever
So the milk paint is the same as the DIY clay paint. You have to seal it in order for it to stay where you want it to stay. And so what I'm doing is I'm using the Sweet Pickens oil wax. It's a natural. There is a dark wax as well, and I love to use both of those to seal my projects with the milk paint. So I put a nice healthy coat on, as you can see, and I let it sit for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then I go back in with my shop towel and I just take the excess off. And you want to make sure to allow this to dry a good 24 hours before doing anything with it after you remove the excess. And it does dry a nice hard surface, and so it gives it a nice protective coat. So I could actually probably set this outside if I wanted to, but I have made it into a home decor. So I'm going to put my little handle back on, and then the next and last project for today is I found this super cute little grapevine basket for Christmas, and it was at the Goodwill. Actually, it was at the North Idaho Youth Center for $3.99, and I thought that was just a super steal. So what I'm going to do is it has like this red burlap bow on there. Wasn't a fan of that, but I love Connie's little cardinal, and I thought I had this little block. I thought that would go just perfect right there in the greenery. So I cut the cardinal out. I'm just kind of give me an idea of where I need to put it. Paint my little block surface white so that I have a nice good white background for that decoupage color to pop. And go in with my Fusion Decoupage Gel, give it a good coat, lay it on there, and I'm going to seal it over the top again, get the air bubbles out, and let it dry. Of course, when I say let it dry, I'm using my heat gun, but you get the point. And then my little finger sander, I can't live without this thing. I love it to death. And then I'm going to go in with some dark wax because where I did sand those edges off, the paper was white and I wanted it to blend in with the wood. So I'm just going to use the dark wood or the dark wax over all of the wood and wipe the excess off with my shop towel and then just hot glue it to the greenery when we're all set. So I took that burlap ribbon off and I have a gorgeous velvet ribbon, which looks way more higher end. And for my loops, I just do like an awareness, like a breast cancer awareness loop, and then pull the center down to the ends, and that makes my bow. It's a really simple bow to do. I've done it several times in other videos. So if you need a tutorial on that, you can look back at those. And then I just use hot glue to put everything back together, and I think it just turned out really, really cute. So this is actually going to be my favorite project for today. So I'm curious to see what yours is. And thank you again for understanding about this being a little bit late. I just couldn't get enough cuddles of the new baby. So I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will be back here next week for more fun. Take care. Bye. And don't forget, if you do want to order the subscription box from Sonnet's Garden Blooms, I have a link, an affiliate link in my description box that allows you to skip the wait list because she's not going to open it up until next February. So if you want to skip the wait list, it is a month-to-month subscription. It has all these super cool products in it. You get to test out Fusion, Sweet Pickens milk paint, DIY paint, and then you get exclusive papers just to the box from Recycle Treasures and Connie, the painted photographer. So it's an awesome box. It allows you to just open up your creativity every month, and I just love it. So anyway, just wanted to give you a heads up on that.